Please go ahead.
Merci beaucoup, Paul. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this very important announcement with Minister Lametti and Parliamentary Secretary Arif Virani. Bonjour tous et à tous. Merci et bienvenue à cette conférence de presse avec l'honorable David Lametti, le ministre de Justice, et son secrétaire parlementaire Arif Virani. À vous la parole, Monsieur Virani.
Merci beaucoup, Chantal. Hello, bonjour tout le monde. Thank you for joining us here. I'm joining you, as is Minister Lametti, from the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, the Anishinaabeg, and most recently the Mississaugas of the Credit. For those of you who know Toronto, you know it is now home to many diverse First Nation, Métis, and Inuit peoples. I'm very pleased to be here with the Honourable David Lametti, the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada, a man who is both a colleague, a mentor, and a close friend. We're here today to talk about our efforts to tackle racism, discrimination, and hate. And allow me to be a bit personal here and say that this is something that actually motivated me to originally stand for elected office 6 years ago in terms of promoting a more equal and fair and more just Canada. Systemic racism and discrimination has taken on an acute focus, which is important and very necessary, and I believe strongly in the efforts that Minister Lametti and the Justice Minister's Office, as well as our government, have been taking. We know that for too many Canadians, systemic racism is a lived reality. It's hate and discrimination is found in all aspects of people's lives. When people go to school, when they play in a park, when they apply for a job, when they search for safety or comfort in their homes or for their families. It can also weigh extremely heavily against individuals in their interactions with the criminal justice system, particularly for Black Canadians, people of color, and Indigenous persons on this land. These are not new challenges. We know this. They've existed long before the COVID-19 pandemic, but they've been amplified in ways we could not have imagined in early 2020. We know about the momentum created by incidents like George Floyd in the United States, Regis Korchinski-Paquette, and others in Canada. We know about the momentum with respect to anti-Indigenous discrimination and the fight against us. Au Canada et partout dans le monde, nous voyons des gens réclamer un changement. Nous entendons les appels qui réclament haut et fort à justice, l'élimination des injustices, des inégalités et de la discrimination systémique. Les gens doivent être convaincus que leurs droits sont protégés, que leurs systèmes de justice sont réceptifs, accessibles et équitables. That is why our government is working to transform the justice system, to improve access to and fairness in our criminal justice system, to create a justice system that is truly just for all. Ideas will come in. They will be floated to members of parliament. They will be floated within caucus. They will come to me in my capacity as parliamentary secretary. And I want to do a special shout out to someone who is joining us here on Zoom, Faisal Mirza, a strong appellate lawyer in this jurisdiction. What I am encouraged by is that the man that I work with in my role as parliamentary secretary, David Lametti, is always happy to hear these ideas and happy to transmit them when he is seized with a good idea. He is receptive, open-minded, and engaged, and he is as committed as I am to creating that equality within the criminal justice system, and committed to the idea of moving towards a situation where we combat and indeed overcome systemic racism and systemic discrimination. On that note, it is my pleasure to turn the mic over to Minister David Lametti so he can announce the next steps we are taking to build the kind of justice system we need in this country. Over to you, David. Merci beaucoup.
Hello, bonjour. Thank you, first of all, Arif, for that very kind introduction, but also for all the work you do on a day-to-day basis. But in particular on this project, you were one of the driving forces on making sure we understood what an IRCA was and why it was important. Like Arif, I'm pleased to be here with you today on the traditional territories of the Haudenosaunee, Huron-Wendat, and now, more recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and I underscore the importance of acknowledging that reality in the current Canadian context, where perhaps for the first time, non-Indigenous Canadians are really forced with confronting the reality of what happened at residential schools. And so this is a particular moment in our country in which this kind of land acknowledgement is even more poignant and more symbolic. I'd like to thank my colleagues who are with me on screen, as well as colleagues here at the Minister's Regional Office, Emily Lamb and Anthony Morgan from the Sentencing and Parole Project. Today we're talking about steps our government is taking to provide fair and equal access to justice for Black and racialized Canadians. This part of our commitment to address systemic racism and discrimination in all its forms and throughout all phases of Canada's criminal justice system. Sadly, tragically, racism and discrimination are a painful day-to-day reality for Black and racialized Canadians. Sometimes this racism is overt and receives international media attention, like white supremacists marching in Charlottesville, Virginia, or racist attacks on certain members of England's football team at the most recent Euro soccer tournament. But racism and discrimination are also subtle and quiet, and also very, very present here at home. Le racisme fait en sorte que certains Canadiens sont confrontés à des obstacles et à des désavantages supplémentaires en matière d'éducation, d'emploi et plusieurs autres secteurs de notre société. Notre système de justice criminelle n'est pas épargné par le racisme systémique et les autres formes de discrimination. So we're making concrete changes to try to right these wrongs, to work towards a criminal justice system that's fair, inclusive, accessible, and equitable for everyone. It's why we introduced Bill C-22 to reform sentencing measures, including repealing mandatory minimum penalties for all drug offenses and some firearm offenses. These MMPs in particular contribute to higher rates of imprisonment and disproportionately affect Indigenous peoples and Black Canadians. In Budget 2021, we announced investments to improve the collection and use of disaggregated race-based data, including advanced analytics. In order to make smart, evidence-based decisions, you need good evidence. And we need to know that for people to get the help they need, we first have to understand who and where they are and why they have come into contact with the criminal justice system. We've also announced investments to revive the Law Commission of Canada, something that I really personally take to heart because one of my mentors was one of the past presidents. The Law Commission would work to support and address systemic barriers within the justice system, including barriers to justice for racialized Canadians. Another important step is to make sure that judges are able to consider the impact of race and racism when sentencing an offender. And that brings me to today's announcement. I'm very pleased to announce that the Government of Canada is providing $6.64 million over 5 years, beginning this year, to implement impact of race and culture assessments, IRCAs, across Canada. This will be followed by $1.6 million annually on an ongoing basis. I'm just going to say the title in French because I need to internalize this. Les évaluations de l'incidence de l'origine ethnique et culturelle avant l'imposition de la peine. As part of this funding, we are proud to support the following projects. The Sentencing and Parole Project, and I'm looking at Emily and Anthony, here in Toronto will receive $480,000 over 3 years for continuing professional development for lawyers and other justice system actors. The People's Counselling Clinic in Halifax will receive $956,000 over 3 years for IRCA assessor training and mentorship. And the National Judicial Institute in Ottawa, the NJI, will receive over $300,000 over 5 years for the development and implementation of an online course on IRCAs for members of the Canadian judiciary. What's an IRCA? IRCAs are pre-sentencing reports that help the court understand how racism and discrimination have shaped the path that leads many racialized Canadians to come into contact with the criminal justice system. The funding announced today will support the drafting of IRCA reports for eligible racialized defendants. It will also support the development of a training curriculum for IRCA writers, as well as education for criminal defense lawyers, Crown prosecutors, and judges. All provincial and territorial legal aid programs will be able to access this funding with the goal of fully integrating IRCAs into the criminal justice system right across Canada. In addition, this is supplemented by our ongoing efforts to increase the diversity on the bench. It is simply the case that the face of Canada's justice system has to mirror the face of Canada in order to get true justice for all Canadians. And I cite the recent appointment of Justice Mahmoud Jamal to the Supreme Court of Canada, the first racialized person to be named to that court, and also the first person of the Baha'i faith. All of this works together, and today's IRCA announcement is a critically important step. Le système de justice doit tous nous protéger, sans discrimination. Nous avons l'occasion d'agir pour des changements durables, grâce, entre autres, à une meilleure représentation. Nous ne devons pas laisser passer cette opportunité. By implementing IRCA reports across Canada, we're taking one more step towards a better justice system and true justice for all. Thank you. Merci. It's amazing what you can learn to do with one hand. There you go.
Merci beaucoup, Ministre Lametti. Cela fait fin à nos allocations aujourd'hui. That's the end of our speeches today. We will now move to the QA portion of this announcement with the media. Just a reminder that you get one question and one follow-up. Maintenant, on va commencer notre période de questions avec nos médias. Juste un petit rappel, c'est une question puis un suivi. Moderator, please go ahead.
Thank you. Merci. Yes, we'll now take questions from the telephone lines. If you have a question and you are using a speakerphone, please get your handset before making your selection. If you have a question, please press star 1 on the device's keypad. You may cancel your question at any time by pressing star 2. So please press star 1 at this time. If you have a question, there will be a brief pause while the participants register. We thank you for your patience. Merci. Nous allons maintenant passer à la période de questions. Si vous utilisez un téléphone main libre, s'il vous plaît, soulevez le combiné avant d'effectuer votre sélection. Si vous désirez poser une question, veuillez, s'il vous plaît, appuyer sur les touches étoile 1 de votre appareil. Vous pouvez à tout moment annuler votre question en appuyant sur étoile 2. Alors, s'il vous plaît, appuyez sur étoile 1 maintenant pour poser une question. Il y aura un court délai vous permettant de vous enregistrer dans la file d'attente pour la période de questions. Merci de patienter. The first question today is from Ashley Burke. Please go ahead. Your line is open.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my question. Minister Lametti, do you believe that Canada will follow the United States and not recognize a Taliban government?
Thank you for the question, Ashley. Obviously, we're closely following the situation in Afghanistan as a government, and I know that, excuse me, our military and security forces are making contingency plans for the safety of Canadians who are there. After that, I will leave my colleagues Garneau and the Prime Minister to speak on what may or may not happen in Afghanistan, and so it would be premature for me to speculate on that.
And on another topic, the military has turned down a female complainant's request to ask RCMP to investigate her rape allegation against a senior military leader. In fact, the military has yet to transfer a single sexual misconduct investigation to civilian police, despite a landmark report 2 months ago that urged the military to do so. That your government did endorse that and said they accepted those recommendations in principle. You were at that press conference. Why haven't you found a way for cases to be passed on to civilians when a complainant wants that? And why aren't you making sure the military is doing that right now?
Well, again, the elimination, eradication of sexual harassment and other forms of sexual violence in our military is a top priority for our government. I know it's a top priority for Minister Sajjan, Minister Blair, and all of the rest of us in our government. And you rightly mentioned that at that press conference we did announce steps that we would begin to implement moving forward, including a complete review of the manner in which these cases are studied in the military justice system, and having reforms to that court system, which I have been asked to look at. Again, that announcement came only a relatively short period of time ago, and we did endorse the findings in that report, and we are moving forward on that as a government.
Thank you. Merci. Once again, please press *1 on the telephone keypad if you have a question. De nouveau, n'hésitez pas à faire étoile 1 sur votre appareil pour toute question. The next question is from Ashley Burke from CBC News. Oh, she hung up. I'm sorry. There are no further questions. I'll now turn the call back to Ms. Aubertin. De retour à vous, Madame Aubertin. I'm sorry to interrupt. Ms. Burke has requeued. Do you wish to take the question? Once again, Ms. Ashley Burke from CBC News has requeued. Do you wish to take the question?
Yes, we do.
Thank you. So the next question is from Ashley Burke from CBC News. Please go ahead. Your line is open.
Thank you. I was hoping to also ask you, Minister Lametti, about your thoughts on the human rights situation in Afghanistan, whether the Taliban atrocities such as executing prisoners, as they have in Kandahar, needs to be pursued and punished.
Well, look, thank you, Ashley, for that question. Of course, it's a concern for me. It's a concern for all people, I think, who believe in human rights, particularly those of us who have followed that situation over the past number of years, past number of decades. And so it is critically important to me and to our government, but it's simply premature right now to speculate on that. Let's make sure that our Canadians are safe. Let's who are in Afghanistan, if they need to be removed, we'll have contingency plans, and those plans are being developed. But let's watch the situation as it evolves on the ground, and it would be incredibly premature for me to comment on that, to comment on what might happen down the road.
And in terms of the other situation that I was asking you about complainants within the military wanting their cases to be transferred over to the civilian system, I understand that you said it does take time, and that report by former Supreme Court Justice Morris Fish was put in place, was released 2 months ago. But what takes time? Like, what is the challenges of transferring those cases over to a civilian system?
Well, as I said, it takes time. There are complexities, and there are other challenges that a government has to face at the same time, including what's happening with residential schools and discoveries of unmarked graves, including what's happening with wildfires that would have an impact on both the military and the public security ministries. So there is a lot, and this is still a relatively short period of time from the time of that announcement, And we've committed to ameliorating that situation in the military justice system, and we intend to do that.
Thank you. Merci. There are no further questions registered at this time. Il n'y a plus de questions à ce moment-ci. I'll return the call back to Ms. Aubertin. De retour à vous, Madame Aubertin.
Merci beaucoup, Paul. Cela fait fin de notre conférence de presse. Je veux juste remercier encore à l'honorable ministre David Lametti, à notre secrétaire parlementaire Arif Virani, à nos invités qui sont dans la salle et sur Zoom avec nous. Just again, this is the end of this press conference. I would like to thank the Honorable Minister of Justice David Lametti, our Parliamentary Secretary Arif Virani, our guests who are with us in the room, and those who are attending via Zoom. Thank you very much. Have a good day.